Alright, another objective morality, values video. So I'm going to title them now, Values, and number them. So maybe just, yeah, because it's going to have to be a recurring argument. Alright, a few people made videos. None of them, I don't like any of them. And this Ekalos guy, whatever his name is, he's even references me, but I don't like his argument at all. So I'd rather he didn't reference my argument at all. It's bullshit argument. It's more this majority defines value kind of crap, morality. And then even in the video, another guy who, I'm just so sick of this shit. We have to redefine words all the time. And people have done this before with this word, suffering. They keep changing it into some kind of, well, no, pain isn't suffering. Suffering is when you contemplate having pain. Like fear is suffering somehow. No, fear is fear, worry is worry, anguish is anguish. They're all forms of suffering. Alright, so dictionary definition again. The state of anguish or pain of one who suffers. 2. The bearing of pain, injury, or loss. 3. Pain or distress, borne or endured. It can't be more explicit than that. Pain is suffering. You don't have to be able to contemplate it and think about it or doing this other crap to be for it to qualify as suffering. So I'm just so sick of people dissecting our language into shit. Well, it's not even dissecting; it's converting, just for whatever purpose. I don't know. All right, and then he also says that that these humans and animals are the only thing that can give value. And like value is something you give. It's not something you see. It's not something you discover. It's something you give. And that is, in essence, defending this whole desire argument, that somehow value or morality is some sort of reflection of our desire. It has nothing to do with what we desire. Desire is completely a projection, at least all desire that doesn't have tied to it some sort of argumentation, some sort of mental imperative, some sort of principle. Then it's always built on shit. Unless your desire is to do the right thing, at least that's your explicit desire. I desire to do the right thing. Then your brain, your intelligence will define what the right thing to do is, completely independent of your self-interest. Well, then that's a legitimate desire. But all other desire is a manifestation of your individual want, need state, and doesn't necessarily reflect what actually should take place in the universe. Because you want it does not mean that it should happen, or that there's value in it happening. And again, desire is a projection of value. It's where we generate a want or a desire, but that doesn't. Desires come in different forms. There's a serious desire, like I desire to no longer have malaria. And then there's the frivolous, superficial desires where somebody buys a lottery ticket and says, I desire to be a millionaire. Those two desires have a completely different, they're not even describable in the same realm of value. They have no meaning even. There's no point in combining them into something, into some common conception. So anyway, and so basically his argument was again defending this idea of survival, as if something's perception of the value of its survival is somehow an appropriate mechanism to glean any sense of morality or the oughts or the shoulds or the definitions of real value out of. There's no intrinsic rational reason to presume that something's survival is a good thing. First, you have to demonstrate that the thing that's going to survive has some destiny or some purpose to accomplish that will create value, that will create something good, that will prevent something bad. And that's sort of the argument that underlies much of this, in my opinion, is coming up with some of defining the core values, the 1 plus 1s, the core variables in the equation And to me, there's only really two things we have to get through. We understand suffering. We understand most people can rationally define unpleasant sensation, suffering. And so that's one component, this negative thing that can happen to a sentient creature. And then the positive thing, though, gets a little more complicated, because the positive thing is, in many cases, is the removal of suffering, the removal of some nagging need, some lacking, whether you're starving, either emotionally or physically. And that creates suffering. And so again, it's removing suffering is really the key value. So suffering is maybe the key component. Maybe there is nothing but our own suffering, and every pleasure we derive is in some way or another the removal of a suffering created. When you desire, you essentially create a mental torment, a mental aggravation, a tension, an uneasiness, a dissatisfaction that it can manifest into something we might call full-blown suffering. Obviously, there's a difference between the trivial and the substantial, but that's the fact of the matter, is that when you satisfy a desire, you are satisfying the unpleasant state you have created, or that has been created in your consciousness, because you lack something. But often, what you're lacking is what you have become addicted to. You're lacking, you want a satisfactory end to your football game drama. You want the home team to win. Or you've been emotionally traumatized because the thing you've invested in, the thing you've invested your hopes in, has been crushed and destroyed on the battlefield, on the gridiron. And so now you've created yourself a depressive state that's completely an illusion in your head, built out of complete crap, because you invested in crap. And so now that negative state exists. You've depressed yourself, over bullshit. But that depression is still real. It's still real suffering. It's still a real sadness. Let's see how else to... you can just see it in so many things. All our reactions, all our emotional reactions are projections of value. It's not a real... There's not a necessity, but it's the nature of the beast. So it's going to happen. We are going to suffer for dumb reasons. That doesn't, and like I said, but the real key is just recognizing that the suffering is what you want to eliminate. And you either eliminate by eliminating the desire that created it, the silly desire, like I want my team to win. Well, just eliminate that stupid desire, and then you're at no risk of losing. So it can become that simple. That's the easy solution to rectifying the suffering equation in that case. That's the most expedient, most efficient way to satisfy, to correct for the suffering, to create the compensating positive, which is the elimination of the negative. So again, that's going to be a key theme in all of this, is the elimination of negative. That's the guaranteed positive. We know eliminating a negative is a positive. So that's the guaranteed. Whether there's anything else that human beings do that can create a positive that isn't made somehow out of eliminating a negative potential, that's an open question. And that's why I would argue that this whole life thing is made out of shit. Because essentially it just creates a mess and then cleans up its own mess and gains some benefit, some perception of value, because it's elevated itself from shit to less shit, from a full shit to a half a shit. And so it has the illusion of accomplishment. Oh, look, I've gone from a full shit to a half a shit, therefore I've accomplished something. When the real question was, well, you never had to create the full shit in the first place, asshole. If you didn't make the mess, you wouldn't have to clean it up. And you wouldn't have this illusion that you're accomplishing something, but you're cleaning up your own fucking mess. And that's the dilemma created by life, because life is a DNA molecule. Life is a reproducing cell. Okay, it doesn't have to have a purpose and a mission, and it doesn't give a fuck about value equations. It gives a fuck about projecting a form, a blueprint into the future. That's the ambition of the little mechanism. It doesn't have any other programming in its mechanics. That's its mechanics. And so the fact of the matter is, it's created shit. And we can clean up the shit. And we can clean up half the shit and feel all proud of ourselves because we cleaned up half the shit. Or we can clean up the whole shit. And that's going to be the bottom line here. But that's the core value, is the suffering. And suffering is pain. Assholes. I mean, really, read a dictionary now and then. I hate even having to say that to people. I mean, well, we really shouldn't have to go to the dictionary to speak English. Fuck. So anyway, enough said. Yeah, I'm out of time anyway. So, value 1.